Welcome everyone again to the Vinyl Community Guncles, and this time around it's another artist ranking. We're doing our top 5 David Bowie albums of the 70s. Now, so we're not going to concentrate on the first two. Those aren't qualified, and that includes the second one, which was re-released in the 70s and called Space Oddity. We won't be talking about that one, obviously. Again, just as usual, no live albums, no compilations. And only the 70s, David Bowie, and we'll be talking about our top 5 favorite albums. Will they all be similar? Will somebody have Pinups in their top 5? We're about to find that out. We are the Vinyl Community Guncles. I am Robert Fitton, along with Mike from Hub Tunes, Richard from Calvin Wazoo, and ladies and gentlemen, the man who has gone on this very show and said that Tonight from David Bowie was his favorite David Bowie album. We'll see if that. Well, I guess we won't see if that's changed because we're not doing
it's 80s.
80s, yeah. But wow,
Hopefully, it's changed.
That's a bold statement. We're a bold group of guys. So yeah, David Bowie top 5 album reviews. I think that Richard from Calvin Wazoo is starting this one.
Yes, David Bowie. I get pegged as a, Frank Zappa being my favorite musical artist, but the reality is, it's David Bowie. It's always been David Bowie. Excuse me. He's not a knife.
Bowie.
But I don't love everything he did. I mean, there's a lot of records that Bowie released that, some of them frankly suck. But he's always been my favorite artist, and he's the one artist that I truly regret not seeing live, because I had an opportunity to see him live in roughly 1978, and I missed it, and I never had an opportunity like that again. Preparing for this, it was like I had my list all figured out, and then I started listening to the records, and then I started going, wait a minute, I got to move this list around. Yeah, this is not working out like I thought it was. So with the 70s, even within the 70s, there's kind of two distinct periods. And I realized that my favorite period of David Bowie, number one, I love his voice. That man's voice is just absolutely incredible. I love the way he sings without, how some people, when they talk with their British accent, they'll have a very street accent, but when they're singing, you don't hear that. Bowie doesn't hide that. He doesn't hide his almost Cockney accent when he's singing, and it's a lot more pronounced in his earlier stuff than the later, but it's always there. I really like that. I love the stories in his songs. His songs are stories. He's got pop songs that are, verse, chorus that are really great, but he has so many songs that are stories, and they're just absolutely enthralling. And then I love it when he gets me to stand up and dance and jam. So those were the things I was helped me narrow down into picking that 5, because the ones I'm not mentioning, by no means am I saying they're not good. This is just how I had to narrow things down. And so the first one at number 5 is actually one I had to go back to later, because the first record I ever listened to was Ziggy Stardust. I was 14 years old, and when I listen to an artist, I tend to pick up with that first record that I hear and then go forward. I seldom go backwards to see their earlier stuff. I didn't start doing that until much later. So for a long time, I didn't know about this one, and that's Hunky Dory. That's my number 5 album. The stories in here are a lot more cogent than with, it was a tough toss-up. I wanted to do a tie with The Man Who Sold the World. But listening, I was realizing this is the better, in my opinion, record. The stories are more cogent. Of course, you've got the hits, Changes and Life on Mars. But there was this one song that I always liked. the Bewley Brothers, and which is the closer. And I always liked that song, but I really wasn't sure about it. So while we were preparing for this, I looked up that song and I was like, holy shit, I had no idea what this song was about. And apparently Bowie had a older half brother who was schizophrenic. And that's what this song is about. It's about the family dealing with his schizophrenia. And there was that one line, I was a stone, he was wax, so he could scream and just relax. Unbelievable. It was such a cool line because you could take it both ways. It could be his brother singing about him, because he can go out and do these outlandish and crazy things as a performer, and then just sit back and relax. Or it could be Bowie singing about his brother because his brother would just go off completely bonkers, and then after the episode was over, it would be like nothing happened. So I loved that. Queen Bitch, a little bit of an homage to Lou Reed, but I do like that one. Quicksand is another song that I really like, how he's describing being mired in your thoughts and not being able to get anywhere. Song for Bob Dylan. I always kind of thought that song was cheeky. It's supposed to be an homage to Bob Dylan, but I kind of think he's giving Bob some digs.
Yeah, he's giving, yeah.
Yeah. So, but there's no doubt that Bowie was influenced by Dylan. So yeah, Hunky Dory finally went out for the number 5 place. Admittedly, though, this was a record I did not listen to for many, many years. Wow. Because, as I said, I started with Ziggy Stardust and went forward and didn't go back.
So when I listened to these, I listened to all 11 albums again this week, and I specifically did not listen to them in chronological order. I didn't want to get kind of fatigued on David Bowie by the end and then unfairly judge those the wrong. So I had a cat pick out which album I was going to listen to that day by putting the albums on the floor, and whichever one the cat walked to would be the one.
Oh,
doesn't everybody do that?
I have 3 cats, and I didn't even think about doing that.
Do that
they
all the
would
time.
have picked out a different one, though.
Putting down records on the floor and whatever one they walk to. The number 5 was the hardest because you're the others are going to drop off, and so I had a 3-way tie going on for number 5, which included The Man Who Sold the World and Heroes. But ultimately, just by a very, very slight margin, this one beat out those to be at number 5, and that is Low from 1977, the beginning of his Berlin trilogy. I never really cared for the whole half vocals, half instrumental thing. The same thing happens with Heroes. But now that I understand why he was doing it for this album anyway, it makes a little more sense. It's a little more enjoyable to listen to. It was originally supposed to be a soundtrack to a Nicholas Roeg movie. The director did not care for that, did not think it fitted the movie at all that he was trying to make, so it just became side 2 of this album. But this is such a fun kind of listen. This is David Bowie trying to get off of drugs. He's a little out of sorts sounding in some places. Just trying to come back to the world after being on cocaine and what was it? A diet of cocaine and bell peppers. And that's it for a year or whatever craziness going on. But some great songs on here. Some really simple melodies and whatever, but being played with instruments that are otherworldly sounding, like not your usual instruments. So you've got very accessible melodies, but they still have that weird otherworldly sound, especially right off the bat with Speed of Life, which has a great energetic thing to kick off the album. Sound and Vision, I've always loved the percussion in that.
But you got problems.
Right. I mean, even when I had just the compilation, that was the first David Bowie I had. That was one of the best. I'd never heard that song. It just really popped out. Be My Wife is so morose and yet hopeful at the same time. It's a great way to kind of illustrate him with this past that he's trying to get away from of drug abuse, and then but at the hopefulness of all this is going on. I'm so lonely. I've never lived anywhere. I've left every place I've ever been, but I want you to be my wife and be, in my life and share whatever, and let's move forward. So I really love that. I usually don't love songs that are hopeful because they can be trite. They can be, Hallmark bullshit, but this does not come off like that at all. Always crashing in the same car. Great lyrics on that.
Love
The
that song.
entire side one, A New Career in a New Town is a great way to start the music on side 2. And a lot of landscape, soundscapes type of stuff. It does sound somewhat like a soundtrack on side 2 to a movie that you want to watch, but the movie doesn't. And there is no movie because the movie he wanted to make that soundtrack for doesn't fit that soundtrack, and they didn't use it. So, but yeah, I was talking about the sound of the album. They use an Eventide harmonizer, which when I found that out, which I kind of recognized a little bit. When I found that out, I just that had to be my number 5 because I have experience with an Eventide harmonizer. And when I was working in radio in Springfield, we got one of those, and I was the one that got the manual and read how to use it. It basically has yellow. I don't know if they all have the same model, but it has yellow buttons and then a dial. It doesn't have buttons that say things. So you have to go to a menu, and then the other buttons will take you to whatever in the menu, and then the dial will either do a function thing or will do a turn up, turn down thing. So you can change your vocal level. You can make it sound like this. You can make yourself sound like a robot. You can do all of these different effects on things without changing the pitch or changing the time or whatever. It's really was pretty great for 1977. And by the time I got it in the 90s, it was, pretty commercial. Yeah, Brian Eno loved it. Duran Duran actually mentioned it in a song.
Really?
But, I loved it. And I was the one that, knew how to use it. Everybody else was, well, I don't know. Manuals are for wimps. Manuals, instruction books are for pussies. What?
Love
And
that.
it's like, no, the instructions are for people who want to do their job correctly. So I learned how to use it, and then I loved it, walked it, because I worked on a morning show, and I was always doing, like, comedy things, and loved the way that you could do all kinds of effects. It had a vocal remover, so if you wanted to do a parody song, it basically flipped the phasing and took the vocal out.
Ooh.
Loved it. And one day I walk in, and it's gone. And it's like, where did the Eventide go? Oh, well, we took it out. Nobody knew how to use it anyway. So there's your radio management there. People don't want to learn how to do their job. Just remove the equipment. Anyway, I digress. Low from David Bowie, my number 5.
That used to be my one of my favorites for sure. And
Yeah,
it pained me to not include it in my 5 because I thought for sure it was going to be in there. I love that album.
The 2 that it tied with, like I said, Heroes and The Man Who Sold the World were, I really wanted to include those, but I don't want to give anything away.
It's my favorite of the Berlin trilogy. It's so good. And I also had it tied for number 5, but I chose something else. So David Bowie is probably my favorite artist. I went on Discogs and looked. I have 64 releases by him. I have 2 full squares, maybe 2.5 full squares of records of Bowie. I was obsessed with him from the first day I heard Ziggy Stardust. I still have a lot of those records that I bought in high school, and now the estate cranks out. I mean, I can't actually now. I don't even buy a lot of them because they're very expensive. A lot of live stuff, so a lot of compilations, which I don't need. But they're cranking out stuff constantly, but like I said, very expensive. He's. I mean, like Richard said, from the second I heard him, I was like, "What the hell is this?" I heard Ziggy Stardust probably in 81 or 82, and unlike Richard, I went backwards actually and listened to like Hunky Dory and Man Who Sold the World. And then by 82, I had a whole decade I could learn about so fast. It was thrilling and exciting, and he was still making music, and he was still putting out stuff, and it was so exciting, to have an artist that big and that talented and that diverse. Everything was different, and I loved Richard said his vocals. I loved how his vocals changed throughout his career. Listen to his vocals throughout the 90s and even into the 2000s. I mean, it just he becomes such a different. He's a chameleon. I mean, that's been said about him for decades. It's probably
Yeah.
cliche, but it's so true. And that's what I love about music, and that's what I love about talented artists is that they're able to. One album can sound this way, and the next release can sound completely different. And that's what excites me about an artist and about music. And David Bowie was definitely one of them. I got to see him live 3 times. I'm so lucky. I mean, I didn't even know how lucky I was at the time, but I did. I saw him on the Let's Dance tour. I saw him Glass Spider and the Reality tour, and he was great every single time. The show was just bizarre and different and unique and just terrific. Just a huge loss. He and then he dies after he makes one of his best albums of his career, which is just typical Bowie, I guess. But my number 5, and I went back and forth. I really did. The number 5 was definitely the hardest. The top 4 I knew, but I went number 5. I went Diamond Dogs. It's just a straightforward rock and roll album. Most of my top 5 are more of his straightforward rock and roll stuff. I love this, right? The title track is fantastic, 1984. It's just, I love this record. It's so damn good. Like I said earlier, Low could have been right there. Even Heroes. Side 1 of Heroes is probably some of the best music he's ever made. But overall, I went with Diamond Dogs.
Great record. One that get dismissed by a lot of people.
It does get dismissed. I agree. I agree.
Well, it's no secret that I did not like David Bowie for a very long time because we've talked about it.
You walked out one of his shows.
I walked out one of his concerts. There we go. I know. Poor Shane, who still hasn't forgiven me for that. But
he shouldn't.
I was in my 20s. There's my excuse, okay? And it's probably been like 15-ish years that I actually started to appreciate him for the artist that he is and musician and so on and so forth. So 11 albums in the 70s. I had only heard 3 of them. So I had a lot of homework. And a lot of homework. And I kind of wasn't really looking forward to it, to be honest, because I'm like, this is a lot. But I'm glad we did this. And nobody will probably agree with my top 5, but it's
Doesn't
mine.
matter.
And I went back and forth. Like, I changed it today. I was like, this is solid. This is it. This is my top 5. And it went, the top 2 remained the same, but the other 3 got moved around, and one was actually taken off and one was put on. And then I
changed my list last night.
Huh?
I changed my list last night.
I changed mine this afternoon.
Yeah, no, this was like when I came home, I had to rewrite my list because it was like not yet. No. And then number 5, I kept going back and forth between Station to Station and this one that I'm going to get so much shit for, but y'all knew it was going to be on my list, and you already know what my number 5 is because you knew it was going to be on my list because we've talked about this album before. So I'll just get it over with. Yes, number 5 is Pinups.
Oh, I like Pinups.
Craig.
Sorrow is a unbelievable.
Sorrow is wonderful, but I don't know any of the original songs. Not one of them. I know Sorrow, but I still don't know the original. Jenny was the best on there. But and I knew his first, but I didn't even know this was a cover album when I bought it. So and somebody said, "Oh, that's a cover album." I'm like, "Really?" I bought this the same time this is I guess technically the first David Bowie record I ever bought, but I bought it with another one. I bought the 2 at the exact same time, and I'll tell you about that one later. I think it's great. Again, I don't know the originals. I have nothing to compare them to, and it's just a fun rock record to me. And again, Sorrow is Sorrow is the best freaking song on here. But I mean, I like Rosalind, and I like Where Have All the Good Times Gone, and I can't explain. I mean, I really, really like this record, and it was released in a really great year. So, I mean, the birth.
I love the cover of See Emily Play. That's such a great song.
Yeah.
I don't. Again, I was gonna look up the original artist. I just did not have time. So I'm still going to do that.
And that's ballsy. I mean, he's covering Pink Floyd in '73.
Oh, that's
or
Pink
whenever
Floyd.
that came out.
Again,
when did that come out? '73.
See Emily Play only came out on Relics, but it really was a single. It never made it on.
Yeah, it was a single
album.
Yeah,
and that was considered.
It was a big single. Well, it was
yeah,
a pretty
it
big
was.
single for Pink Floyd.
Not know that. No.
But yeah, doing your contemporaries too, like the Who. You know, is kind of like, because a lot of people don't want to admit that people that are, you know, putting out albums the same time they are, you know, that they like those, but you know, they want to go to the past, you know, when they do covers.
Yeah. I guess.
And covering a Van Halen song before they even did it is quite odd, you know.
Oh,
how do you do that?
Oh, wow.
It's a Kinks song. Just don't bother with the call. I get it. It's the Kinks, right? Yes. Where have all the good times gone?
Song?
Where have all the good times gone?
That's see. So it is my goal to find the original version of every one of these songs and listen to them. But I was gonna do it this week, and I wonder
if anybody's ever done a playlist on YouTube of that album with the original.
That's what I was going to do, but not necessarily on YouTube, but I was going to do it on my streaming service.
That would be a cool playlist to put together.
Yeah. His version of Sorrow is still one of just awesome.
Fantastic.
Absolutely fantastic.
It's so good.
That's kind of a lesser-known group called the Mercies.
The Mercies.
Is it? Okay. Yeah, I didn't know who that was.
Like the Mersey River.
Yeah.
Not the Mersey Beats, but the Mersey.
I mean, Jenny Lewis has a really great version of it, but David's is better.
Oh, yeah. The Mersey Beat was the style of music. The Merseys was the band. Okay. Anyway.
And as we go forward, you guys are going to learn how clueless I am about David Bowie and his catalog, because the things that I learned,
that's why we
do this. That I was like, what? Really?
I'm not sure that Pinups would be my. If we did the whole list, I'm not sure that Pinups would be my number 11. It might be my number 10.
I did a whole list, and Pinups comes up at number 10.
Yeah, there's one that I don't like really that much of these 70s albums.
Pinups
we may discuss that
later.
On my list. See if anybody shows that one.
Pinups might be my 10, because I think I have one that I really don't like. That it might be the same one that Robert's thinking of.
Well, the one that I really don't like, my number, actually I have 14 records, but yeah, there's.
How do you have 14?
There's only 11, but.
Well, you know, Peter and the Wolf came out in 1978.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And then there was David Live at the Tower Theater. That was
so good.
And, well, that's my number 14. I hate that record.
What? David Live?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of panned by people. I don't think I've heard it so long.
He was like in the total depths of his cocaine addiction, and I just did not like his singing.
Great.
Yeah, it's now very well received.
Oh my God.
Well,
there are better recordings in that era. Yeah.
Number 4 now is one that Mike showed, and that's Diamond Dogs. That's my number 4 from 1974. Like I was saying earlier, is one that was kind of panned by a lot of people, but I just really love this record from start to finish. It's got some great tracks on it, with some hits like 1984 and Rebel Rebel. They were on the radio, and but all the deep tracks are all really good as well, and it's got this even more of a theme than you might think of a theme being with Ziggy Stardust. I think it's a little more cogent of a theme going on with this one. And it's filled with a sense of urgency as well, kind of like the song 5 Years. It's like many of these songs are just talking about, an apocalyptic world and people nihilism just controlling everything, and people not really giving a shit about each other. But then you get a song like Rock and Roll With Me. The voice. Again, that voice soars. God, I played this record over and over and over and over and over and over again. Interesting, I see that Ainsley Dunbar was playing drums on this as well. The song "We Are the Dead" just gives me chills. And also, Bowie does such a better job incorporating disco grooves and disco themes into some of the songs. A hell of a lot better than he was to do later with Young Americans. It just really, to me, smoothly moves back and forth between rock and dance beats to some degree, and then just weirdness. Just some of the weirdness is so good with like that Sweet Thing and the chant of the ever-circling skeletal family, the closer at the end of the album, the jamming of that guitar player. Who is that? That is Bowie. Is credited as doing all the guitars, saxes, Moog, and Mellotron. So yeah, he's just like scratching away on that axe. Just a killer. So yeah, Diamond Dogs for me is my number 4. Excellent album.
I do not number 1 on anyone's list.
That has the genitalia on the dog.
Is there one that has that?
Yes,
there is.
Yeah.
Because I've heard different stories about that. I heard that was just a slick. It wasn't like a promotional slick that had that. It wasn't really an album.
No, there's an album cover that actually has that.
I don't have the one with the genitals either, and I just realized I left Diamond Dogs in the other room, next to the turntable, so I cannot show that. But my number 4 is Diamond Dogs. And it's like Richard said, it's diverse, and that's what I love. Albums where they go all over the place, and one song does not sound like another. And this one is sort of like that. Diamond Dogs is a great way to kick it off with that little Future Legend intro, and then going right into Diamond Dogs. This isn't rock and roll. This is genocide. It's like, no, this is pretty much rock and roll.
No, it's gonna happen now.
It sounds exciting. That's the thing. It's like the opposite of Low, where it's more of like a thoughtful.
It's his most exciting album.
This is the one where the drugs are starting, so we're still in that party mode. They haven't quite taken over. It hasn't gotten sketchy yet. But yeah, Rebel's a great rock song, just straightforward rock with that guitar riff going on, and I love the lyrics of that. Just as great today as it was. I karaoke'd that song one time. All the drag queens got into it. They loved it. I loved it. I loved doing that, and obviously, I did not sing anywhere near as Mr. Bowie. But then things slow down, like Richard said. Rock and Roll With Me is a great tune on there, too. Sweet Thing's pretty cool as well. The disco in the song 1984 is like an orchestral disco, which really didn't get popular for another couple of years. So even though it's disco, there are different varieties of disco, and that particular kind of disco, he's kind of on the forefront of that. Being that this is 1974, I think. And so it definitely sounds a little dated at this point, which is ironic that the song about the future 1984 is the one that kind of sounds the most dated at this point. But yeah, it's a very, very fun, energetic album. It's a party album, and it's just great all the way through. I wish it was like one song longer, because side 2 especially just seems a little bit short. It's like, it's over already. But yeah, very fun, very energetic, and a lot of like rock moments. But dance, disco, a little bit of that funkiness that comes in later, but it doesn't overpower things. The plastic soul, as David Bowie calls it, it's just there a little, just enough, number 4 is Diamond Dogs for me.
Yeah, it's great. Okay, this is where we're probably gonna all start to disagree with me. This is a perfect album. It could be number 1 easily. It's probably his best album. These are my favorites. These are my top 5 favorites, and this is number 4. It's Ziggy Stardust.
Oh,
it's his best album. Doesn't mean it has to be my favorite. It's a perfect album. I mean, we've all 5 years, Soul Love, Moon Age, Daydream, Starman. It Ain't Easy is side one. That's insane. Lady Stardust, Star, Hanging On to Yourself, Ziggy Stardust, Suffragette City, and Rock and Roll Suit. It's perfect. It's an absolutely perfect album. It may, in my world, I mean, because this was the first album I ever heard by David Bowie. This was the moment where I was just like, wow. So maybe there's a little bit of that where I've heard it so many times over and over and over again. I mean, this was in everybody's car, in the cassette player. It was played at every party. It's just, I mean, it's a perfect album. But for me, personally, emotionally, it's number 4.
He definitely seems like he's up here on that one, and he's kind of unreachable and unrelatable. Whereas something like Diamond Dogs, I feel like I'm partying
Which I think
with...
he was supposed to. I think that was...
Oh, sure, it's the rock star Ziggy Stardust. But with Diamond Dogs, I feel like I'm partying with David Bowie.
With him.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like, why maybe that's not as... why the other ones are more of a fun listen, and that one's more of an iconic listen.
Beautiful anniversary pressing.
Man, I wanted those color ones too, and I had to break down and get a couple.
They did all
I have
of
most
them.
of the originals, but some of them I had to get the reissues, and I ended up getting the black vinyl.
I got too much Bowie is what I have.
You can never have too much.
Half of them I don't listen to.
Because you can always give some of them away.
Yeah.
I could. I could.
Mm-hmm. You could.
Right
Doesn't mean you would, but you could.
Not gonna.
Okay, number 4 for me from also 1973 would be Aladdin Sane. So yeah, first time we already know, first time I've heard this album. Jean Genie, only song I had ever heard off of this record. So I thought it, as I was going, I actually went chronologically in listening. And I thought this was actually going to be a lot further, and then there were a few others that just kind of resonated with me more. And again, I feel like, no, I thought my top 2 were going to be completely different. So shut up, Craig. But yeah, I just the Lady Grinning Soul, is that what it's called?
Yes, Lady
I only wrote, Let's Spend the Night Together. I did write a few things. That Cracked Actor, that is fun.
Yeah,
that is fun.
Porn Star.
And I really like Drive-In Saturday, but this one just kind of, it flowed, and it just kind of I was on a journey. I don't know. I really wish I had a little more time to spend with them, and I think who knows, going forward it might change a little bit, but these were I've picked the ones that it was like upon first listen, it was like I was immediately drawn to them, and then I went back and listened to everything again, and it was the same type of thing. Like there were 7 that I kept going to, and then I dropped a couple off the list, but yeah, I mean, I don't really know. I love the picture on the cover too. I was gonna do the little, but I didn't have time to give you
I didn't put on my Bowie shoes.
I was gonna do like a little, what is that called?
That was popular makeup for a long time. People were putting on that lightning bolt face for it. It was almost as popular as the Grateful Dead skull with the lightning bolt.
Even today, if you go out on Halloween to an adult Halloween party,
somebody's gonna be Bowie.
Somebody has it.
Somebody gonna be Bowie. But there you have it, my number 4.
All right. Well, my number 4 kind of blew me away the first time I heard it. Or number 3, excuse me. Yeah. I had graduated early from high school, so in January I was out of school. My parents were getting worried that I was out of school and I didn't have a job, so they were planning like this trip. We were going to go down to Florida, and they were going to take me along because they couldn't leave me, to my own wiles. But before that, I was hanging out with some friends in this other town where I grew up, and I was riding in the back of the car, And on the radio comes this song. And I'm going, whoa, who is that? Who is that? And they're going to David Bowie. And I was just like totally blown away with it. And the song was Golden Years. This is my number 3 record, Golden Years. Or excuse me, Station to Station. And there's another album to me that is really, really solid. Although much of the album, this is when he's hit the bottom with the cocaine. He's trying to work his way out of it. And a lot of the songs on here are really about that struggle. Like the song Word on a Wing is him singing, because in 12-step programs and rehabilitation programs, they tell you to surrender yourself to some other higher power. And Word on a Wing is about that struggle, where he's trying to figure out how he fits into the scheme of things. But he still believes in himself, and that conflict. Again, the voice, when he's singing these songs, Station to Station, with that guitar sounding like a train coming down the tracks. It's just...
Is that Adrian Belew?
No, that was Moldovar. What's his name?
Carlos?
Carlos, yeah.
Carlos Alomar, yeah.
Alomar, not a Moldovar. He's an actor. Word on a Wing, Station to Station. TVC 15 has always been like one of my favorite songs. I remember seeing him on Saturday Night Live, when he did that song, and it took me a while, but I finally figured out what the song was about. I really thought he was singing about a car. That the TVC 15 was a car. But then I began to realize, no, this is a song about his girlfriend jumping into the TV, and so that's why he can't. The TV is a TVC 15. That's the model of the TV, and his girlfriend is in the TV, so he can't let go of the TVC 15. It's just mind-blowing story that he puts together with a song. It's just incredible. Golden Years, I always loved that song. And to me, it's about youth. I was in my golden years when I was listening to this song, although I've read other places where they say he's sort of talking about the golden years of old age or something. No, to me, it's a song about youth. In your golden years, nothing's going to touch you in these golden years. And then Stay. I think Wild is the Wind. That's the song he gifted to Nina Simone.
Yes.
And which revived her career. But yeah, it's such a great album. The Thin White Duke. He is, which is, I guess, in a reference to a line of cocaine. But this is the album where he's really struggling with pulling away from that. And you can hear the torment and the turmoil in some of the songs. But yeah, this is just, to me, it is still a great song. Every one of these albums, one of the key things about these albums, too, that I'm mentioning, is when I play them, I have to play them loud.
Oh,
really?
Yeah.
Fucking
Absolutely.
Loud. So that's when I bring the headphones out, because my neighbors would hate me, if I was playing them really loud. When I was a kid, I was able to play them really loud on the stereo. My parents would be gone, so I would, crank it up on their giant Magnavox upstairs, and then I could go sit out in the yard and listen to the music while playing and that. But yeah, now it's kind of headphones. But yeah, Station to Station, such a great record.
That's the only one from the 70s besides Pinups that I don't have on vinyl. Because I'm waiting for this. I'm waiting to find the one with this cover, the Ryko disc. Where it's all in color and everything. But yeah, Golden Years, I always got the impression that was about youth. I never thought that was about Stephen King's version of Golden Years, where it's, old age or whatever. But you guys are talking about hearing David Bowie on the radio, and it's in every I think Mike said it was in every cassette deck and every party. David Bowie, again, one of those artists that I had to discover on my own. Living down here, he was never on the radio. Really? At least these 70s songs. I mean, sure, Let's Dance and Modern Love and all that when he came back in the 80s had those huge hits. But it was Changes, and every once in a while you'd hear Space Oddity. Yeah, and that was it. I mean, they never played anything from Ziggy Stardust.
Those are the corporate radio songs for sure.
Well, it's a Midwestern thing. He was too weird. He's too European. He's too gay is basically what they were trying to say, even though he may or may not have been or whatever. But that was the perception. We don't play gay people around here. We play Boston, and we play, Styx and whatever. We don't play no David Bowie. So, I never heard him.
Priest, no gay people.
Yeah, right. I could name some others, but and so I never really heard Changes and every once in a while Space Oddity. These other songs never got played, and it was this release from Ryko Disc. I had it on a cassette, the expanded Changes, that really got me familiar with all those other tracks, and then I had to go out and get all the individual. It was CDs at that point on the Ryko Disc re-releases. But yeah, so he's one of those people like, the New York Dolls and The Cure and whatever that I had to really find out about for myself. But my number 3, and my top 3 could be very interchangeable, but my number 3 is going to have to be Aladdin Sane, just like Craig. There was a while where this might have been my number 1, but I listened to it again, and it's a good number 3, I think, for me. Cracked Actor, of course, nasty porn star song that Craig talked about. Still love that. Aladdin Sane, another song about his brother. Insane. He's an insane boy. Panic in Detroit's kind of like got this, he's singing about America and, kind of got this ferocious kind of intensity to it. Not a big fan of Let's Spend the Night Together. I think that's probably less of my favorite than anything that's on Pinups. I wish one of those Pinups songs would have been here. I don't really get why that's a part of this.
Put Sorrow on him.
Yeah. Genie's kind of fun. It was one of those that were on the Changes Bowie Ryko Disc thing. But Watch That Man, the very first track, is my favorite on here. Yeah. Where he could eat you with a fork and spoon and
watch that man.
Some of the lyrics, I forgot to look them up, but I'm not sure what he's saying. But some of the lyrics of that might be a little.
He talked like a jerk, but he's only
taking care of the room. What's the next line?
Watch that man.
No, that's not the next. He talks like a jerk, but he is only taking care of the room. What is that? The next line.
That's what I'm
trying to. I'd have to start singing it from the beginning because this is a record where
it must be in tune. Okay, never mind. I thought he was saying something else. I'm like, yeah, I don't know about that because he's talking
must
about
be in tune, right? Yeah, must be in tune.
Yeah, okay, that's not as bad as I thought. Then never mind about the lyrics, but. He's talking about somebody putting holes in somebody. I thought he was talking about something else. He's had some questionable. He's had some controversies. I'll just put it that way. But Aladdin Sane, David Bowie, love that. That looks like something out of
fabulous.
Yeah, that is wow. I'm not. I think he's being androgynous, but David Bowie, Aladdin Sane, my number 3.
So my number 3, Aladdin Insane. Absolutely iconic cover. Yeah. Mick Ronson comes back for this final album after Ziggy. He leaves after this. I think that was a huge blow to Bowie. We talked about how important Mick Ronson was to David Bowie as far as producing, writing. He was a musical genius. You wouldn't have had this run of 3 incredible albums without Mick Ronson. I mean, it kicks off with Watch That Man.
Actually, 4 albums because he was on The Man Who Sold the World.
Yeah, he was a little bit. Yeah, that's right. Watch That Man, absolutely fantastic. Lou Reed would cover that for years, probably until the day he died. Drive-In Saturday, Panic in Detroit. What a great guitar riff. One of my favorite David Bowie songs, and that's why this album probably made it above Ziggy, is Time. I absolutely love the song Time.
And to the floor.
Yeah, and if you ever heard some of the live versions of it, absolutely wonderful. There's live versions from the Thin White Duke era that will blow your mind. Absolutely blow your mind. The Prettiest Star is beautiful. Let's Spend the Night Together. You can keep it. Gene Genie.
I actually liked that cover.
Well, but just a terrific album. I don't think it gets enough love, actually, in his whole catalog. I absolutely adore it. And that's my number 3.
I think a lot of people consider that like Ziggy Stardust Part 2.
Part 2.
Yeah,
I think
he seems
a lot
to
of
do
people
albums in pair. I mean, now he has the Berlin trilogy, but other than that, he seems to do like pairs of,
Yeah, but it really isn't. Yeah. It really isn't a Ziggy Stardust Part 2. It's really its own thing.
It's great.
But anyway,
yeah.
I mean, even the persona is different. The makeup is different.
Yeah.
I don't know. Berlin trilogy. So is that apparently 3 albums are called?
3 albums that he made when he moved to Berlin.
Oh, okay.
Him and Brian Eno made 3 albums together. Low,
Heroes,
Low, Heroes,
and
Lodger.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
But Heroes and, like I said, pairs, like Low and Heroes seem to be a pair for me because of the instrumental second sides. That kind of go together.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, now I know. I just like your Berlin again. We all
also
know
moving to Berlin in the 70's was not kind of thought as a good thing. I mean, I was kind of
There's a lot of junk going on.
Yeah, he got a lot of criticism for all that, but he made some of his best records.
Well, number 3 for me. Speaking of your trilogy, or his trilogy, the third part, Lodger, this is one of the the 79. That was the third one, wasn't it? No, Station to Station is last, right?
Oh, right, you're right.
Lodger is 79.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was after. Okay, I was like,
I'll cut that out. I don't like to be wrong.
Okay. Oh, so the rest of it's gonna be wrong.
Sure.
The 5th can't. Okay, I got you. Okay. Okay. So yeah, Lodger, third of the trilogy. Yeah, it's just this one I kept listening to quite.
It's underrated.
There wasn't anything like quite a few of the other albums. There was at least one. Oh, made in Germany.
Ooh.
So obviously I don't have it, but there's 4 out of what we've done that I'm actually going to seek out and try to get, if they're even available.
The great thing about his catalog, everything is available.
They're ubiquitous.
Especially these 70's ones, and they're really not that expensive either. And they sound the reissues. I mean, if you get originals, they're expensive, but the reissues sound great.
Okay.
These are the 3 that I have.
Yep.
Yeah, this was the one that one of the ones that I just kept kind of going back to and kind of listening to, and it just I don't know. I liked every song. There was quite a few of them. Sorry, I have to keep going. No, don't play the music. I have to keep going and looking at the track because I didn't write a lot of notes on this one. So Boys Keep Swinging, obviously the only song I'd ever heard off of this record, which is a great song. I really like the Yassassin Turkish for Love, Long Live. I like the sounds, and then the opening, like the Fantastic Voyage, African Night Flight was a little strange, but Red Money, like the closer,
cool.
I really, really, really enjoyed that. So this entire record, and previously there was 1 or 2 songs that I didn't really care for, and this one, it was like the first one where it was the entire record. I loved the entire record.
DJ is on there, isn't it?
Yeah, DJ. Yeah. Red Cells, that was another one that moved on. Yeah, it's just the entire record is just
I don't think it gets a lot of love. I really like it. I think it's a great record. It gets panned a lot, but I think it's great.
It was so hard for me to not include any of the Berlin trilogy because
I didn't.
Low for a long time was my favorite Bowie record.
Mm-hmm.
DJ was always really personal to me because it's got that line, I am a DJ, I am what I play. And, you know, anybody that's been in radio that bounces around from format to format, suddenly you're the country guy. Oh, now you're the rock guy. Now you're the light rock. You know, It really does take over your life and your what. I don't know if that's. I think he's more talking about like a club DJ or whatever.
Right.
Probably.
But yeah, it's a great. Those are great lyrics. And Boys Keep Singing. Somebody brought up Saturday Night Live. He did that on Saturday Night Live. Little fun fact here. And they censored the line, "Other boys check you out."
Yep.
Yeah, right. I remember
Hip
that.
New York Saturday Night Live can't have Bowie singing "Other Boys Check You Out." They had to censor that.
Lord Mike,
laughable.
Such a dude.
I'm sure the network probably.
Midnight on a Saturday.
He was kind of a asshole though too, because he was the one who told Elvis Costello not to play radio.
Yep.
And he did anyway.
He's still not allowed to play on Saturday Night Live. Banned for life.
Oh man!
And John.
So we're up to number 2
That's
now, huh? Right. Number 2. Well, number 2 is used to be a number 1 for a long time, at least when it first came out, and that was until another record came out. But yeah, number 2 for me is Ziggy Stardust, 1972. I'm 14 years old. This was the first Bowie I listened to. It was also the first time I got high. So what a combination. My friend plays this record after we were out smoking, and it was just an amazing sonic journey. Just incredible, you know, from the beginning. And I kind of like the way, too, there's this perfect opener and a perfect closer. It opens with 5 years, this dire warning, you know, that we're destroying our planet. Gee, how prescient. And then, but the closer, Rock and Roll Suicide, is hopeful, you know, because we're still talking about you know, it's the end, but we can still love each other. We can, you know, give me your hand. And I can remember watching him on, I can't remember if it was a King Biscuit Flour Hour or one of those shows, but I saw his final concert as Ziggy Stardust, that, you know, which you can now readily get on DVD and all that. But I remember watching it on TV. And, you know, they would go behind stage when he would change costumes. And
I've seen that.
And the song Moon Age Daydream with Mick Ronson and that guitar jam. Oh, my God. Mick Ronson is seriously one of the most amazing guitar players around. My favorite all-time Bowie song is on this record. And that is Lady Stardust. I just love that song. It's a torch song. All right, it's kind of it's supposed to be like an homage to Mark Bolan, because there was this whole scene going on, you know, with the glam rock, and Mark Bolan and all of them. They were part of this glam rock scene, which kind of on the outside world was more focused on the outrageous, you know, clothing, which was certainly part of that, and the androgyny. But there was something else going on with glam rock musically that was really quite amazing. And this song, you got part 1 of this. There's like 3 parts. There's part 1 where the crowd is sort of mocking Lady Stardust, you know, because of her androgyny or whatever. But then part 2, the crowd is drawn in. You got that line, boys stood up on their chairs to make their point of view. God, I love that line. And then the song moves into sort of the singer, Lady Stardust, who's singing songs of darkness and dismay. and of disgrace, and how each lyric or each verse changes. And then there's that part where Lady Stardust pays attention to him, to David Bowie, and that line, "Oh, how I sighed when they asked if I knew his name," and then he goes home and he dreams, he's reliving the whole experience again at home. That's such a wonderful song and story, and it's in a range though that I can't quite sing along with it.
No.
He gets way up there, and I can't do that. There's a lot of extra production that goes on in this record, and it works with this record, I think. It brings a texture and a softness and a fullness to many of the songs. This is, first time listening to David Bowie. At the same time, you are high for the very first time. It was, I was hanging out with the Starman. It was quite good. So yeah, that's my number 4. And Lady Stardust.
Number 2.
Or number 2. What am I saying number 4 for? Because I'm going in back direction.
Because you're high.
And well, that might be. Anyway, that's definitely my number 2. But again, my all-time favorite song is from this album with Lady Stardust.
My number 2 is Hunky Dory. This was the second studio album that I heard from him on. Actually, first. This was the first studio album I've heard from him on CD. And, of course, has the big hit Changes, so that kind of propelled him into superstardom. I guess Space Oddity was a hit too, but that's the one that, still got played after all those years. Kind of an odd cover there, but 1971, and it's a great album all the way through. 8-line poem even. Oh, You Pretty Things was kind of like a precursor to Ziggy Stardust. You know exactly where he's going with a song like that. John, I'm Only Dancing on that as well, but that's not on here. Never mind. Quicksand is great. Song for Bob Dylan, just mirroring what Richard said about how, he's being critical of that. And then Queen Bitch, and then Andy Warhol, or Warhols, or whatever they say at the beginning of the song. Yeah. So you've got...
It's Warhol.
Yeah. So you've got a trilogy there right in a row of, talking about other people. And then, of course, the final track, maybe you don't know, or maybe you do know, but, how he's talking about his own brother. But we talked about those earlier. But I really love Kooks on here. Yeah. Because it's about his son. And he's kind of giving fatherly advice and telling him what's going to come up in his own David Bowie kind of way. And it's such a sweet song, and it's so out of character for everything coming later, where he's Mr. Super Cool. He's literally Mr. Rock Star from another planet on the next album, and then after that he's just Mr. Cool and untouchable David Bowie and the belle of the ball and all that. But here he's just a parent with a new kid, telling him what to expect from life, and it's definitely one of my favorite songs on here, if not my favorite song on here. It's just so unguarded and so you just imagine him out in the yard or something, mowing the grass or whatever. David Bowie. So yeah, the song Kooks is great. Life on Mars, or Life on Mars with a question mark. Again, kind of getting you ready for the Ziggy Stardust otherworldly thing. But yeah, this was a great way to start my whole journey with the studio albums outside of the compilations. Actually, I'm wrong again. My first studio album of the 70's, I should say, because Let's Dance was before this. But, I thought this was his debut when I first got this. I thought this was his first album. But, David Bowie's Hunky Dory, my number 2.
Nice. My number 2 is Station to Station. I love this record. It has my favorite Bowie song on it, Stay. Stay is... definitely my favorite David Bowie song. Right up there. Probably Time might be close. The opening track, Station to Station, is brilliant. Golden Years is such a wonderful, uplifting song. Just absolutely love it. TVC 15, great. I remember the Saturday Night Live performance of it too. And then, Wild as the Wind is such a wonderful, wonderful song. The Thin White Duke era didn't last long for obvious reasons. He probably would have not survived it. But live performances from this era are absolutely my favorite of Bowie live performances. The estate is doing a really good job of releasing live stuff from this era. Everything, it seems like everything they release is from this era. And there's we talked about David Live or whatever it's called, not the best recording. They're releasing much better stuff, and I love Station to Station. There used to be a point where I thought this was my number one, but I don't know. For this video, it's number 2.
That kind of serves as a soundtrack to The Man Who Fell to Earth, right? That's actually
that's more low.
Oh no, that was low. Yeah.
Yeah, that was low.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, I think so.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Station to Station came out after him doing The Man Who Fell to Earth, so it's kind of a fallout from that experience.
Because I thought that was a scene from the movie, right?
Yeah, I think it is.
It might be. Yeah, it might be.
Yeah. It's been a while
since
I
thought that.
Yeah. Great record. Craig.
Oh, me, number 2. So the album that I purchased the same day as Pinups is number 2. Okay?
Tonight.
And fun thing about this, because I didn't know until I did my Discogs, I bought them at a record store, bought them same time. This one's a bootleg. Didn't know it was a bootleg, but it's a bootleg. So yes, Ziggy, Stardust, and the Spiders from Mars is number 2 for me. Mine's on orange.
Is it yellow? Yeah.
Mine's on orange. And did not know until I was cataloging my stuff, and it's like, oh yeah, no, you have a bootleg. I'm like, sweet. It sounds fine. But yeah, that's another one that, like, every song on here, I mean, you open with 5 years. I think It Ain't Easy is probably up there and is like probably in my top 5 of favorite Bowie songs. It goes back and forth. Suffragette City, that makes me happy to be alive. I love that song so much. Rock and Roll Suicide, first time I ever heard it was at a Rilo Kiley concert, and they covered it. And I was like, this is a really cool song. And then I was like, oh, well, if Jenny Lewis likes David Bowie, then maybe I should revisit David Bowie. So thank you, Jenny Lewis, because I do everything she tells me to do. But yeah, great record. I thought it was number 1. It's not. But yeah, orange. And it's got like black stripes through it too.
It's a perfect record.
It sounds okay.
It is
so
a great
now
one.
it's time to find out what our number 1.
Number 1.
Number ones. The top of the tops.
Let me
in the
put
70s.
my arms around your head. Gee, it's hot. Let's go to bed. Don't forget to turn on the light. Don't laugh, babe. It'll be all right. Pour me out another phone. I'll ring and see if your friends are home. Perhaps the strange ones in the dome can lend us a book we can read up alone and try to get it on like once before.
It's a concert.
I will never sing on this channel.
His eyes and scored like the video films we saw. Yes, this album, Aladdin Sane. Oh man, I played the hell out of this, and then when I play it now, I still get chills. And there was a time I fumbled the lyrics a little bit, but I could sing every song from start to finish through the entire album. It was just one of those records that just, watch that man. Oh man, just kicks off and just
such a great opener.
No shit. He talks like a jerk, but he'll eat you like a fork and spoon. And then Aladdin Sane. The piano. That piano playing is just woo. It is just crazy.
Woo.
Panic in Detroit, which was like that was about that near nuclear accident that happened just north of Detroit. Cracked actor. I can remember when my brother told me it was a song about a porn star, and I was like, "Oh, really? Wow." For a long time, side one was the side that I played the most. Side two, side two is great. I love side two as well. Time, just incredible, but it has a different feel than side one. And I really gravitated towards side one and the party jamming, the loud, but side two is the same thing. The Prettiest Star. I like Let's Spend the Night Together, that cover. The Jean Genie, which I always thought was a funny song, and then later finding out that it's about Jean Genet, who was just a wild-ass drunkard gay man who went out and fucked everything that he saw, and that's what this song is about. Lady Grinning Soul.
That should have been on Heroes.
Yeah. Right?
Lady Grinning Soul, I actually did a project in high school with that song. There was a student teacher who wanted us to rewrite a song we really liked. So I picked that song. And so in class, I played the record, and then I read my lyrics after everyone listened to it, and I read my lyrics to it. And so the teacher was this woman, and one thing about this record, I knew what was going on at this time in my life and in the world. I knew what was going on. I was afraid to give in to it. I was just really afraid to give into it. But I love this record because it did offer me a sense of hope and freedom that maybe someday I can step away from this cornfield of a life that I'm living in. And so when I rewrote the song, that she was a college student teacher, and she was like, "Oh, that was so beautiful, Richard." I thought she was getting wet right there in front of everybody in the classroom. And I'm kind of looking at her going, okay. But
I wish you still had these lyrics.
Normally I save all that kind of shit. I have writings that I scribble down, and maybe I do someplace, but I don't know where.
If you find them, you need to read them.
So, but anyway,
make people wet.
I know. I
made the people wet that I didn't want to make wet. So, but anyway,
story of my life.
It's still my favorite album.
Right.
It still brings me the same joy every time I play it. So and I still listen to it with fair regularity. It's to me one of the greatest rock albums of the 70s. It's just, to me, it's wonderful.
All of these are.
Yeah.
Which is freaking amazing.
You talked about like the difference between side one and side two. I did a video one time about how, albums that you can listen to side two first and have a completely different experience. And I forgot to mention when I showed this is a great album to do that with, and Heroes. Listen to side two first, and it's almost like a long instrumental prelude before David Bowie appears, in side one. But
that's a good
so
idea.
Everybody's already shown this, so I'm going to be the cliched guy and put it as I'm the only one that's going to be a cliche and put this as my number one album. But it's Ziggy Stardust, because, why not just go with the general public and be
it's his best album.
A total cliche. This was the second of his albums that I'd heard from the 70s. And at that time, I just thought this was another David Bowie album. I didn't realize this was so iconic. So I'm kind of, coming at this opinion, not at that time, not realizing that this is supposed to be, his best album from the 70s or whatever. And as soon as it came on with 5 years and just that sad, like Richard was telling, storytelling in that song.
Yeah.
And then it just abruptly changes to Soul Love. This, like, happy kind of soul love. It's just kind of like almost a crooner type song, and I'm still at this point not getting the whole he's portraying a character that's a rock star from another planet and he's larger than life. I don't really get that until like the end of side 2,
Yeah.
So I think beyond just that whole thing, this is a great album just to listen to and not really get into the whole Ziggy Stardust persona. But a Moon Age Daydream, awesome. Starman, what a great concept, great lyrics, great. I mean, would have made a great movie. I know there's a movie called Starman, but it's not the same thing. But how he would come to Earth, but he's afraid he'd blow our minds. So you've got this alien that's actually thinking about what would, from that perspective, what would Earth, the changes and the horrible things that would happen on Earth if he landed. So he's just going to stay away. I don't know if there's any movies like that, Usually they're going to come invade and we got to get the guns out and blast them away. Even Plan 9 from Outer Space, where they're just trying to be friendly and help us. No, we're going to blow you away because we're Earth. But I love the whole concept of Starman. And then, of course, the Lady Stardust really kind of getting more into the, what the album's supposed to all be about. I'd start off on side 2 and then Star and then Hang On to Yourself. It's just a kind of like a little rock and roll ditty.
Rock and roll.
It's just so fun. And then the real star appears, Ziggy Stardust with his theme song. Again, from the Changes Bowie thing, I'd heard that one before, loved it. And just like on this album on Changes Bowie, it goes right into Suffragette City, which is still one of my favorite songs. So exciting, so energetic, and the whole constant hey man. But yeah, there's so many different opinions on what exactly that song is about, and you don't have time for chicken and all. I thought he was saying you don't have time to check in, just go. You don't check in, you just go right to it, but he's apparently saying you don't have time for chicken. And does chicken mean like a young person, or I don't know, who knows.
Especially
wham bam, thank you ma'am.
Time.
I always change the ma'am to man, but sing it along. But yeah, my number one big shocker is Ziggy Stardust, the rise and fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars.
It's his masterpiece.
Yeah,
I mean, there's no doubt about it. My number one favorite Bowie is Hunky Dory. I love this record. I don't know. I mean, opening up with Changes and Oh You Pretty Things, Life on Mars, and like you said, Robert, Kooks is probably it's in my top 5 favorite Bowie. I just love it. It's so tender. It's wonderful. Quicksand, side 1 is perfect. Side 2, song for Bob Dylan is great. Queen Bitch. I don't know, for some reason this always ends up right at my number 1. Every time I've done a countdown or video or something, this or Station to Station, go back and forth, 1, 2. And like I said earlier, number 1 could have been any one of these 5 records. They're all so damn good. I did a top 5 just now, and I didn't have any of the Berlin trilogy in my top 5. That's how good this guy was. And even the Man Who Fell to Earth. I mean, or The Man Who Sold the World. That's a great record.
It is.
There's so much good music from this man, and I hope we end up doing. I don't want to do the '80s, but even like stuff he did in the '90s is. Even the stuff he did in the '90s, there's so many hidden gems. He did some bad shit too, later, but there's still some really, really good underrated music in the '90s, and even in the 2000s. But Hunky Dory, definitely my number 1.
Yeah, we haven't really talked about what's next for him, and we'll discuss it later. But whether we want to do, and it won't be next. Next, by the way, we're going to do the Violent Femmes. That'll be talked about coming up. But when we do finally get around to the rest of David Bowie, whether we want to do 80s and make that a video, and then 90s and beyond and make that a video, or do we just want to do the rest of David Bowie, including the 2 from the 60s?
That's a lot to listen to.
Make that a video. So that's, who knows? Maybe we'll do the 60s and 80s. Yeah. Because we couldn't do the 2 60s albums, 60s and 80s, and then everybody will have the 2 60s albums in their top 5. But yeah, that's we'll see. That'll be interesting, because I noticed that so far we haven't heard Craig's number 1 yet.
You have not.
But we've all pretty much had. There's been a couple, but we've pretty much all had the same 5 or 6 albums.
Yeah.
There's a couple that haven't been mentioned yet. Will they be mentioned now?
No, it's been mentioned.
Okay.
Okay. So number one for me, this was I just kept going back to it, and I learned things by listening to this record because I did not know certain things. But anyways, number one for me is Diamond Dogs from 1974. I loved the whole Sweet Thing Candidate, Sweet Thing reprise, whatever. Rebel Rebel, only song I'd ever heard of this record. We Are the Dead, so good. And did not know that 1984 was his song. I thought it was Tina Turner. Well, I didn't think it was hers, but
You thought it was who?
I had only heard Tina Turner's version of 1984.
I don't think I've ever heard it.
It's on Private Dancer.
It's on Private Dancer.
Well, I've never heard that.
I did. So obviously, I went back and looked, and I was like, "Yeah, if I would have read it, it's just right there, written by David Bowie." But I mean, yeah. Until I heard this, I was like, "And his is so much better." It's so like before. Obviously, Tina's was the only version I'd ever heard of this song before, so I liked it. And then I heard his, and I was like, and then I listened to hers again. And I was like, "Yep, no." His is better. I don't know. This just, the last. Well, I mean,
it's a great album.
We already knew Ziggy. I mean, I already knew it well, so I didn't have to go and listen to it a lot. But between this and Lager, I kept those two. I just could not stop listening to them.
You had a Lumberjack album?
Huh?
And he's okay.
You said Lager, so I was.
Or Lodger or whatever. I don't. It's Lodger.
That was Bowie's Lumberjack album that he did.
Yes, it was his Lumberjack album. Roger, Lager, whatever. It's what? Shut up. And I've had a whole glass of wine. I always use that.
You had a whole bottle
when I'm not smart. I did have a whole bottle last time. But,
We just did a 4 people doing their top 5 David Bowie albums from the 70s, and no one mentioned this one. I think that's interesting.
Yeah, shocking.
Because a lot of people think this is one of his best. But
the both of those albums, Heroes and Low, in my first list that I just wrote down quickly before I started listening to everything, they were in my list.
Even Young Americans, we didn't even talk about that. Then he does that
Young
Philadelphia
Americans,
Soul.
to me,
I don't like Young Americans.
Young Americans, I did not enjoy in the slightest.
Really?
Terrible.
Wow. I thought I was going to get some flack for saying I don't really care for this. But
of the 14 albums,
enjoy it. And
I listed Young Americans was number 12.
Yeah, this was my number. Well, I only listened to 11. I didn't do the soundtrack or whatever, and the live one. But I had this at number. We did 11 albums. I had this at number 11. I would rather hear Pinups. I can't stand that infernal friggin' saxophone that's all the way through here.
Yeah,
it's a little too snazzy, jazzy,
and that's what it's supposed to be. I mean,
it's him sounding like he's kind of imitating people. It's not him being out.
Well,
on the
read
forefront.
that he made the mistake of letting John Lennon take over production.
Oh. In 1975, John Lennon, by the way. So that's not exactly
probably where
John Lennon.
Probably where Bowie started his cocaine habit.
And that's isn't that during John Lennon's like what's called a Lost Weekend, which is like 4 years or whatever. But yeah. I mean, it's okay. It's a David Bowie album, but compared to the other David Bowie albums, this doesn't stack up.
There are so many others.
That was my least favorite, and then y'all mentioned it.
And that damn saxophone. I do not like that.
Oh, the sax. Well, hello. We don't need no Kenny G with our
right, and that's exactly. It doesn't even sound like cool like rock and roll saxophone. It sounds like a Kenny G saxophone. I think it's David Sanborn, which is Kenny G.
Is it really? Which is Kenny G of the 70s.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And I didn't enjoy The Man Who Sold the World either.
Love it.
Yeah.
Read about what the width of a circle is about, and then listen to that song again.
Okay, I will do it. I will do that. When I listened to it, that was the only song I liked. So
I didn't care for the Running Gun Blues. Kind of ruins that album for me.
That song didn't make sense to me. Running Gun Blues.
Oh,
I mean, is this guy singing about how he's gone out and killed people and shot people, and then now all of a sudden he's got
It's a war.
This is the third one
Right,
that
I get that,
have
but
from
what
the
are the running
70s,
gun
though,
blues? Is
so
he
you know.
depressed or what?
Yeah, I think so.
It's
I have
like,
the also have the Metabolist remix of this, and I love the way they did that. It's not like these Beatles remixes. When they remix it, they actually change the name of the album, so you know that this is a different thing. It's not like the Beatles Revolver, where we're going to remix the whole thing and still call it Revolver. I love the way that they did that.
If you're looking for a, yeah, I have that too. Yeah. This is a great.
I like this one.
This is a great comp. This Bowie at the Beeb. This is awesome. This is probably one of the first Bowie records I pull out and listen to. It's a great comp. I'm not a huge comp person, but there's some wonderful, like, Mick Ronson just acoustic in the studio. Just if you see this, grab it. I don't know if it's still in print. It is out on CD too.
But it looks big. Is it like a 3-record set?
It
or
is
something?
4.
Whoa!
4-record set. It is spectacular.
That begs the question: is it streamable?
I believe it is. Yes, I believe it is. I have never checked, but it's usually one of the first records I pull out of his. There's some wonderful versions, especially like the 70 to 72 sides. Really, really good. Starting at like record 3, absolutely fantastic. 3 and 4 are the highlights. Yeah,
Nice.
Highly recommend this.
It is on the official
Is it?
YouTube music app.
Yeah, check it out. It's more acoustic-y versions, more just him and Ronson in the studio. Really, really good. And his vocals you can hear his vocals, the pureness of them, really well. Highly recommend that.
And this is, if you look, this is kind of hard to find on a vinyl, but the Ryko disc changes where it goes all the way up to the 80s and whatever. This does have a remix of Fame.
Heroes would have been, the music, just the music ones, like on Low and Heroes. That's just what kind of I needed more words.
Yeah,
but Heroes is probably, it's definitely like 2 or 3 favorite Bowie song ever for me. So
yeah, it's such
I thought just for that song alone, I thought it would be in my list, but it wasn't.
So that's our top 5 of David Bowie's 70s album. We'll get to the rest of David Bowie at one point, but the next album rankings will be the Violent Femmes. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah,
I'm familiar with about 5 of their albums. I think they have 11, just like the Bowie 70s.
I'm unfamiliar with about 9 of their albums.
10.
Well, this is going to go down on your permanent
I think it's
record.
just 10.
Yeah, just 10. So will we all have the same one at number 1? Because that debut is, that's the classic one. All the others are, basically for the fans and whatever. But the first one, the big one that everybody has in their collection or whatever. So that'll be interesting. The Violent Femmes, and they've gone all the way up to the 2010s. Do they have anything from the 2010s?
Yeah,
they made an album a couple years ago.
Right,
Yeah,
2019 or
okay.
18, they have an album.
Yeah, that was their
I
last.
think I
Resort.
bailed on New Times. I think is probably the most current I've heard, and that's like 94 or something like
94.
that.
Yep.
Yeah. So I haven't heard anything past that. But yeah,
And they're
Violent
touring
Femmes are
again,
coming
too.
up with an artist ranking. Before that, though, the next thing you'll get from us is our tops and bottoms of the year 2011. Yikes.
Watch out. That's going to
Watch
be
out.
golden.
Mine's going to be a little bit different because I have only heard 2 albums, and I'm certainly not going to listen to 400 albums to try to find out what the absolute tops are. So I've picked, I think it's 24. 24 albums, and I'm going to do my tops and bottoms out of those.
Oh.
And I'm probably only going to be able to listen to each one of them like maybe once and then skim through a second time, but I won't be giving each one like 3
Well,
listens
yeah,
at a
that's
time.
24 albums, so.
Yeah, that would be quite a bit of
too
music
much
there.
Yeah, that's
Too much work.
But yeah, because it's work listening. It's sitting there going,
Well, it is,
I have a good idea of someone that's going to end up on the bottoms,
Oh dear.
but we'll save that. We're also going to review the Totem 3 album from the master musicians of Bukkake.
Bukkake!
Bukaki!
Bukkake!
You definitely want to be around for that.
Bukkake.
Bring a towel.
Yeah, don't miss the bukkake.
No, you don't want to miss this bukkake.
Never do.
Well, except that one.
Yeah, where it flies past. Yeah. All right, we are the Vinyl Community Guncles. Once again, I am Robert Fithen, along with
Richard Kelvin Wazoo.
Craig's Vinyl Plethora.
Mike at Hubtunes.
Thank you so much again for watching.
Bye-bye.